Welcome back to another edition of The Preview. I'm Adam Kulikowski. I'll be your host, the one feeding all the questions to our expert in Andy Shea. On tap in this week's edition, we'll break down a pair of games with Capital Division title implications, Big Spring versus Middletown, and perhaps the crown jewel of this slate this week, Boiling Springs versus Steel High. We'll close things out with a trip to the Speedway, where Carlisle will face off against CD East. Welcome, Andy. How are you today?
Good. It's week 10. There's all kinds of fur flying around, and we're still wearing shorts to games, which is stunning. So good for us. So let's get at it. Let's see what we got cooking.
I love it. I'm curious, though, there are a bunch of local teams right now sitting right on the bubble, some in, some out of the playoffs right now. Those teams sitting outside of the thing, outside of the playoff bubble right now in week 10. Give me one or two that you think might have a shot to make the playoffs.
So in Class 4, I think 4 and 5, Greencastle Antrim has a shot, right? They're sitting at 11 to make the field. They have to beat Shippensburg, undefeated Shippensburg. So that's kind of like, I'm not sure that's going to happen. In 5A, I think number 18, Palmyra, has an outside shot. They have to beat Lower Dauphin. And then I think they need some help too, right? Their OWP, the opponent's winning percentage, is not helpful for them. So they are a maybe in my eyes with a win and help. They're a maybe. And then there's number 10, Cumberland Valley in Class 6A. So they play Central Dauphin. They have to win that game. Their opponent's winning percentage is stellar. It's 100 points higher than Carlisle. So we'll talk about that in a bit, but they can pull off an upset of Central Dauphin and get to 5 and 5. They will hunt. And of course it depends on what the teams do around them, but what they can control, I like their opponent's winning percentage, and I think with a win, they could be that team that makes it and slides in. But so those are my three that I think have outside shots that are currently not in.
Cumberland Valley, can they beat Central Dauphin? Can they get it done?
I think it's a 60-40 game, 65-35 game. But I think it's a maybe. It's definitely not like do I think Greencastle Antrim can beat Shippensburg? No. Unfortunately. Cumberland Valley's is more 60-40, 65-35. CD's a favorite, but I give Cumberland Valley an outside shot.
Okay, let's get started with our previews, Andy. What a game Big Spring put up last week, knocking off Steel High. Bulldogs this week have another tough one. They travel to Middletown to wrap up the regular season. Help us break down this game.
Yeah, so there's no time to rest on the laurels of that massive 35-point blowout of previously unbeaten Steel High for the Bulldogs. They don't get to sit around and, soak it in a little bit. Middletown's playing their best football of the season. Their quarterback play has improved tremendously. They're moving towards, they week to week, they move towards being a little better sound defensive squad overall. For me, this game's about Ethan Eisenberg, the quarterback for Big Spring. If he finds that sweet spot of pass run in that modified wing tee that he tends to kind of find, and he hits a few of those shots down the field to keep the Blue Raiders on tilt, that is a big key for Big Spring. I like where Middletown has moved to in a season where they've had there's been major changing up people, right? A complete overhaul of the coaching staff. They lost a lot of talented players, some transfers. So they've had a lot on their plate to work with before the ball was snapped. So they've moved along and progressed this year, and it's been encouraging on so many fronts. But physically, this game isn't a mismatch either way. So that's a factor. Don't forget, one of the things that sort of, when Middletown was crushing people, they were physically superior, and that isn't going to be the case in this one. And for me, Big Spring simply has more weapons to deploy on a more consistent basis. The Bulldogs can play in a sandbox, or they can go up and down the field. They can do it either way. They're very comfortable in both scenarios, and that makes them a hard team to play against.
So, Andy, this is an important game for the Bulldogs. Give us a little breakdown of their playoff chances. Can they get in number 8 seed right now in the 4A power rankings? 10 clubs make that.
they're number 8, which I was surprised. I know Steel High is Class 1A, and that's a factor too, but they have a decent opponent's winning percentage. They didn't move. They stuck there sort of in that sticky spot, right? I think it's massively important for them to win this game and to not leave anything to chance, right? Control what you can control, and then sort of the rest will take care of itself. And losing, I really don't know what happens. I'd like to think 7-3 with their OWP is enough to be in the top 10. And, their OWP isn't like stellar, but it's not a drag on their ticket either. So I think they lose. It becomes I don't know, but I'd like to think 7-3 is enough, but I'm just not sure. So I'd be more comfortable seeing the Bulldogs secure their second ever playoff berth in program history ever by winning this game and not leave anything to chance.
Yep. So Andy, give us your prediction.
Bulldogs, woof woof. End of story. It's their game. They need it. They won it, and they're playing really good football.
Yes, sir. Let's stay inside the Capital Division. This might be the best ticket in Week 10 right now. This one kicks off on Saturday at Cottage Hill, where the Rollers will host Boiling Springs. Andy, give us your breakdown.
So even if Steel High wasn't coming into this game a bit wobbly and was still undefeated, right? And they are wobbly, and they're no longer undefeated. I still always like the Bubblers in this matchup. Boiling Springs is versatile. They have a wee bit more speed than you think. They're faster overall than you think, right? Don't let that fact get lost. They've lost a game. They lost to Mechanicsburg in week 4. They were pushed by Middletown and Big Spring. They showed they can navigate some murky waters, and when they weren't at their absolute best, either lose a close game but move some step forwards, or win and keep the ball rolling. I mean, Steel High kind of had a little bit of it. They had to rally to beat Trinity, but it's been a lot easier for them. But when Big Spring, punched them in the gut and knocked them down, they never really punched back last week. So they need to rebound on that front, in my honest opinion. And that does not mean that the Rollers have to win this game to rebound. That's just, I don't think they have to beat Boiling Springs in order for them to be back on track. Just make it a game when the other team punches, you sort of punch back and get some of yours. If you win, great. But remember, the Rollers, they're still a Class 1A team. You can't forget that. And they're prepping for the next level. And these games are going to help them prep. Last week's games, hopefully a learning thing that helps them prep. So getting rolled like last week, that's not helping you in any way, shape, or form. Get prepared for the big games that they know are coming down the line. I'm not saying anything anybody doesn't already know, but make it a game. That is a big factor for Steel High this week, because I'm pretty sure Boiling Springs comfortable in their own skin, and they will show up.
Yeah. So Andy, you mentioned that. What's the X factor for each team to be successful? How do you get the win?
Yeah, it's the quarterbacks. It's Alex Irby for Steel High and third-year starter Colin Lundy for the Bubblers. Irby just has to make sure that the Rollers offense is as lethal as it can be when the situation allows for it. I'm not saying he has to be extra super special or anything. What Boiling Springs gives them, he has to be able to take for Steel High. And for Colin, it's just being the veteran surgeon runner of the modified wing tee that he is. For all their backs and receivers and what they do and all the skill positions they have, make no mistake, the sort of the engine that drives this offense is that quarterback. And that is evident when you watch them play, because he's like a surgeon running Brad Zell's offense. He is really good at it. He knows when to yin, when to yang, what to take, what not to take. And you're all of a sudden in the middle of the game, you're like, this offense is just carving us up, and I'm not sure why. It's the way and how precise he runs it that makes a big difference.
Yeah. And Andy, we got to catch up with Colin earlier this week on our show, The Spotlight. So please check that out on fourthdownmagazine.com. It's a great interview with Colin and the Bubblers. So give us your prediction. I think you kind of foreshadowed a little bit.
Yep,
but give us your prediction.
I already tipped my cap. No matter what happened last week is irrelevant. I was taking the Bubblers in this game every single day and twice on Sunday.
Okay, let's hit one more game before we get out. Carlisle is hanging on to that final postseason gold ticket, the 8th seed in the 8-team 6A field in District 3. Tough matchup on deck though on Friday. However, as the Herd go on the road against CD East, I have one question for you, Andy. Can Carlisle get to the postseason? Give us your take.
So, I mean, they have to beat CD East. So, but if they beat CD East, I'm pretty sure they're in even with their winning percentage. They have enough of a little bit of a cushion. But if they don't win, I'm pretty sure based on my gorilla math and what I call a wonderfully beautiful unknown formula, we all know the components of the formula and I like them a lot that District 3 uses, but you're never really quite sure how it all works. So that's why it's wonderfully beautiful. I think a loss and they're pretty much out. I mean, Hempfield loses and they lose. I think it gets tight because of their OWP and what does CD East bring to that in a loss. But and I think CV upsetting CD is a factor too, because Cumberland Valley's 10 and their OWP is really good and they bring some, pep to the table. So I think Carlisle has to win to get in. It kind of ticks me off because I think they deserve to be a playoff team, but this is a tough spot for them.
Great campaign for Carlisle regardless. Just for a note though, Hempfield, the number 9 team right now, they play Penn Manor on Friday. And CV, they're number 10, so they're lurking like you said.
Yep.
What's your prediction on this game, Andy?
So Carlisle's going to be in this game because they pretty much always are, right? Find a Carlisle game where they were not in the game this year, and they are always in the game. They need CDs to help them, though. I think a little to spring an upset. And I'm sorry, folks, for what we know historically about CD's program, guess what? The Panthers are not that team in 2021. They do not shoot themselves in the foot to help the opponent in games. They just simply don't. You get what you earn against CD East, and it's hard to get what you get enough against that defense, let alone they really don't shoot themselves in the foot. So I'm going to take the Panthers just because they're playing really good football and they've been consistent all season. They know their identity and they've played quality quarter of football after quality quarter of football, and they just beat Central Dauphin convincingly. And how can you pick against them because they know exactly who they are?
Yep. I'll ask you a bonus question. CD East gets in the playoffs. What's your expectation for what they can do in the postseason?
So I would expect them to win at least one game. That is one game minimum is the expectation. If they win and beat Carlisle, they're going to be a home team. They're going to get a home game, and I don't care who it is below them. The expectation is that they should at least win one football game. That is a realistic expectation in my book.
Great. Andy, thank you so much for your expertise.
Sure.
That's it for this edition of the preview. Check us out on fourthdownmagazine.com for all of our weekly content. Support your local teams and get out to see a game. See ya.
See ya.